Godling Evolution. Godling, what an incredible word. As most of you know, I get these insights and then I draw on these notebooks, and I've got like hundreds or thousands of actual pages of drawings. And so as I draw, I really kind of get the sense of the unfoldment of what's happening with the energy streams and different things. But I also get these unusual words that kind of pop into my head, and godling was one of them. Did you know you're a godling? I guess it's kind of like a duckling, that we're kind of like in this infant state and we're becoming more mature as we grow. And the cool thing about the word godling, like the word Godforce, is I was looking through some ancient text not too long ago, and I discovered that Godforce is actually an Atlantean term, which makes sense. I probably had a lifetime or two in Atlantis. And of course, Atlantis wasn't just an island. It was the entire breadth of the Earth, the planet Earth, which I like to move the H into the beginning and call it planet Heart. Because at that point in time, the Earth's resonance was that of love. It was that of just the purity of just of innocence. And there was no maleficent or evil or anything on the Earth that happened when we, well, I don't even say we transgressed. We allowed, because we love so much, something to come into this planetary realm, which caused us to fall at no fault of our own other than the love that we had at that time. So let me step back. As I was kind of flipping through this and this godling term kind of popped into my head, I went back and go, well, that was interesting. Have I seen that somewhere before? So I went back and looked through some of these ancient teachings that I've been privy to have a chance to look through, and actually godling was in there. And it's really exciting to think about, because as we look at the Godforce, and as I've shared with you, the Godforce is this unselfish love, this, well, Atlantean, Lemurian, or even beyond those civilizations over the earth. It is this amazing love that we've kept in perpetuity. And this is exciting for me to teach this ancient teaching, because what it means is the majority of humans, just think about like as a dot, and the dot gets bigger as I talk about the Godforce. So the dot, the majority, 99% of humans are here. Maybe there's a fraction of a percentage and the dot gets a little bit bigger. And what I'm talking about here is the ability to have this unselfish love, this Godforce, it's awakening, this level of consciousness and awareness that most people just can't really comprehend. And so it gets even more reduced. And of course, then there are you evolutionaries, or maybe I should start calling you godlings. I think that's kind of a cool word, actually, godling. But this expansionary process of phi, which is the law of blossoming, this is all part of the structure. And this is actually pretty interesting, because the more I look at other spiritual teachers, because I don't really look too much at them other than certainly picking up the people of law of attraction. But what I found is none of them have a model, an evolutionary model, or an ascension model, as they would call it. And if you don't have a model or a framework, and you're just telling people to feel good, that doesn't work. So for me, and actually I'll do a video on this, the whole point is going through the atoning, the attunement, and then the amplification. So the 3 A's, and the amplification is really the blossoming, and that is the natural law of God. So actually I've got this framework, but I've never really, I don't think, shared the entire framework with you. So that's something I'll do in an upcoming video. Now, I want you to also, to help put things into perspective, is put it in a different context. I put the little dots, and that's interesting. But let's look at it from a, let's say, a metric, or a ruler, if you will, a stick. So the majority of, and I did this particular measurement structure in 3, 6, 9, 12. So let's just say the 3, the lower spectrum. That's really the infantile amount of consciousness you even need to be aware of to be on this planet Earth. And some people are even kind of like maybe negative. Well, just saying. But anyway, when you do that, that's the majority of the population. Of course, you're much more advanced than that. But really, when you think about this, so we've got this whole, let's say, metric of quantity to fill up. And so most people are here, but they don't recognize that they go to here. And this, of course, is just relative to the Earth consciousness. You can actually go beyond that, or the mortal consciousness grid, if you will. And think about it as a grid, because as we climb, we actually go into 3, 6, 9, and begin filling up the volume of consciousness, the vessel that we're in order to expand love. And that's really what this whole teaching for me is all about, is the expansion of the Godforce to keep you from reincarnating. And of course, the reincarnation process doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to stop reincarnating here. I mean, it does, but it also means that you are evolving your body, your physicality. And I've talked before about bioetherics, and bioetherics really is about the God within you, the God force within you, within this vessel, but you're becoming more God than human. And that's really what this is about. It's about filling up the vessel of the God force within you so you become something more than human. And you get to take this body and do whatever you want to with it. Live forever, or exchange it or morph it, and however you want to have that construct. Because if you look back at our bodies in Atlantis, and I'm going back to Atlantis a couple times in this video, we were essentially 12 to 15 feet tall. We were breatharians. We didn't have to eat. We absorbed the natural forces of nature, of God, and it just permeated and perpetuated our life force. And then, of course, we fell. And of course, well, another cool thing about that is we were telepathic. So we were able to communicate even very complex things. And I wish that I had that ability now because, and some of you get what I'm saying, but there are things that I want to convey that are so complex that I really have to simplify it for this, because when I'm drawing these things to share with you, it's really in a 2D framework when I'm seeing things in 3D, 4D, 5D, in multiple dimensions, and compiling it all together to come up with something like this. So let's talk about the consciousness, and the consciousness is so very important. And why is it important? Why is the God force in the sphere, this golden ratio metric, which all of the universe is made of, in these spirals of universes that just go on forever and keep expanding? That is what is inside of you. You are this golden ratio, this golden mean of God that is ever expanding. And there is no nothing to stop this unless you fall into the mortal teachings. And the mortal teachings are something like, well, the law of attraction. Because again, as we are expanding, law of attraction means that you are bringing that expansion in. You are attracting in. So instead of a sphere, you're actually creating a misalignment in the spherical shape of this godliness that you are, and you're pulling that in because you're attracting. Remember, attraction is contraction. And you're creating an envelope or a vortex that's pulling in or attempting to pull in material goods. And the challenge with that is once you've opened up or burst, if you will, this God force around you, this field of resonance that's godly around you, you've actually opened it up, poked a hole in it, so demonics can come in and possess you or attach to you. This is why the law of attraction is so prevalent today, is because it's a demonic field day. Seriously. This is like what people don't understand. The more materialistic they become, the more they are entrapped in this matrix. And it's really crazy because one of the things that I learned very early on, and one of my guides had showed me, was that when I look at or observe a channeler, let's say, somebody that is channeling energy or entities, I was able to go in, let's say, with like Paul Selig, and I've talked about Paul before. He's amazing. So I've sat with Paul, and I can actually look at and see the entities that he's channeling. So I can actually see the stream of consciousness moving back and forth between Paul and these entities. And these entities that Paul channels are in the etheric. Remember, I've talked about the etheric being the God space, the godliness. This is where the chakras for the human, and hu is another word for God. It's different than mankind, which are the fallen ones, which the humans, which are the ones watching this channel, are the ones that have this opportunity to evolve and understand what's going on here. So Paul is channeling entities within the etheric. Now, when I look at other channelers, they're channeling entities in the astral realm. And I've talked about the astral realm being bad, demonic, crazy stuff. And so you look at someone like Esther Hicks, and while she says some, the perception is some amazing things that make a lot of sense, when I look at Esther Hicks, I see her channel, her beings, Abraham, is in the astral realm. And of course, what is demons, Satan? What do they do? They're the tricksters. They are the ones that want to trick you into believing something that's false. So if anybody is trying to trick you, if you will, into having more material goods or using your force to corrupt the natural flow of someone else's God force or whatever that might be, then that is a disruption, a disharmony in the natural laws of the spirit world, the spirit realm. And because of that, these people will be, well, I'm not going to say punished because that's not exactly the right word, but they will be sent back to Earth School again for another 12,000 or whatever years because they haven't learned how to become creators or co-creators with the God force, the spiritual aspects of who they are to manifest whatever they want. And I talked about manifesting a while back and the negative connotations on it, but there's also a positive expectation. For example, what most people don't talk about is with regards to duality, and they go, oh, 11:11, that's like so cool because I've got this synchronicity. Well, guess what? There is a dark aspect to 11:11 because if you look at the ending of World War I, guess what? It was November 11th at 11 o'clock is when that peace treaty was signed. And people go, well, Joe, well, that's positive. Well, it's positive if you see it from one perception, but the other perception is the people that control the planet actually planned it because they were using the harmony of those numbers against the rest of the population. So no matter what you might think with regards to synchronicity, is it a synchronicity in the positive or the negative? But that is really up to you to control that dynamic of reality. But you have to make sure that you don't just fall into this, what's the word I'm looking for? Something that is just a falsity, because some of these teachers don't even understand there is duality in synchronicity. Now, there are no coincidences, but you have to really understand what those coincidences and synchronicities mean. Is it, it's always a truth, but does it fall on the positive side or the negative side? And you can ask yourself, really regarding the solar, SOULAR, aspects of your consciousness, God force, to really get a better handle on that in each and every situation that you're in. So as we look at this, we have to look, why is this important? Well, number one, it creates, as we increase our God force, expanding the unselfish love within us, we become more aware and more attuned to things beyond the human grid, the earth grid, and really this level of consciousness. So we're actually, and I've talked about this before, but not exactly like this, we're actually able to peer into this grid from beyond the grid because we've now connected with our future self who has evolved beyond this and having a great insight and able to pass that insight and create a reality loop or a energetic loop which connects and accelerates our ability to be more aware, more conscious, which when we do that and we're connecting with our future self, it helps them become more aware, more awake. And and again, it is a conscious expansion, a partnering of who we are, which creates this expansion. And so the most important thing or a couple of different things to take away from this video is that, as I've talked about, the heart is the seat of the soul. And I had some folks after my last video talk about the third eye. I'm like, but you really need to understand that the third eye is nothing. I mean, the heart is the seat of the soul. And this is one of the betrayals, if you will, that has been taught for so long because they want us, the people that control the planet, want us in our head. They don't want us to go to our heart. And if you look at ancient mummification, and I say ancient, I'm not talking about Egyptian because the Egyptians or the mummies in Egypt were actually Atlantean. So the Atlantean process of mummification was to take out and scrape everything out of your brain. Period. So that includes the third eye. And a friend of mine who's fairly knowledgeable on this goes, but Joe, they kept the endocrine system. I'm like, no, they did not keep the endocrine system. They it was very unique, very interesting, because they had 4 Coptic jars. In each of the jars, one of the jars they had the lungs, one the intestines, one the liver, and one the stomach, which I thought was very interesting, and I don't have time to go into that now. But the most important thing to remember or to understand about the mummification process is, what is the one organ they left in the body? Oh, you know this, come on. It's the heart. The heart is the one organ, because remember, the heart is the first organ formed when you are conceived. It is the original chakra. It is the seat of the soul. So they honor the seat of the soul by leaving it in the body, because it is the throne of the soul. That is why the ancient Atlanteans, and I've never heard anyone ever talk about this, so it's really pretty cool actually when you are able to share things that haven't been shared at this level of consciousness before. But the heart is the seat of the soul, and then of course, or the throne, and then of course, when you move on after this lifetime, the ancient Atlanteans and Lemurians, etc., other ancient civilizations honored the soul by leaving the throne within the body, because that was the soul, not the head. And here's another great example. If you die, you have an NDE, which I've had an NDE, but people that have actually died, so NDE stands for near-death experience, so you're kind of quasi-dead, I guess. And then, of course, you have people that have died, and then they get brought back 20 or 30 minutes later. So these people have full cognition of sight, of ability to think, emote, emotions, and a number of other things. So they're outside the body. So if they're able to do this, what is it about the brain that they have taken with them into the other realm? It's not the brain. So when people talk about the brain, and I've talked about this before, you don't really think the brain is kind of like a processor here. It's like a mechanical processor, so it switches things off. But again, when you are attuning to higher degrees of consciousness, which is opening the Godforce, it allows you to process and see certain things. And I talk to people all the time that I think are pretty aware and awake, and they're like, whoa, Joe, stop. I can't process what you're talking about. And it's actually pretty funny. I'm like, dang, what's up with these people? And I can't even really get into too much on this channel. I mean, I'm sharing things that no one else has ever shared. And when people look at this channel, they go, what is this crazy person doing? Well, I'm sharing insights that are beyond the scope of where most people think. So when you get more engaged, and when I talked about doing some meditation practice earlier, I talked about going within the heart, because everything is within, not without. And yet these beings that control the planet want us to think everything is without. So whether it's whatever culture, whatever religion, and for Christianity, it's not some old guy in a beard. It is, and even they've tried to humanize it with regards to Jesus Christ. It's beyond that, and again, that's a different conversation for a different video. But when you go into the heart, you actually are entering into, as I mentioned, the domain of the soul. And the soul, really, think about it as the planes of the deities. So as you go deeper into the soul, which I've talked about it being the wellspring of God, the eternal fountain of God, then you are entering in and going and passing through the different planes of God. So you're getting to know the Godling in you to become more of a God, to become and awaken the God force within you, become this amazing creator in this lifetime. Because remember, and this is very important, what you do in this lifetime impacts your next lifetime and lifetimes thereafter. So by expressing and learning things here that will expand the God force and open up this Godling within you, helps you now prepare for future incarnations, which again impacts your future self. And as you've created that resonance carries through into the future. And again, it also helps you escape the false teachings of not only this matrix, but, and don't, people get mistaken. They have these preconceived ideas of the fifth dimension and other different things. But let me explain something to you. That is just another matrix. So you've got to truly understand that if you're talking about the fifth dimension or whatever that might be, and I've used this as kind of examples in the past, but I've also talked about there are no such thing as dimensions and densities, but just from a context. But now let me step back and say that a dimension is a framework which I have created, or someone has created. Well, I use it as an example, but I don't have that particular framework in my brain or in my, again, we're not thinking with the brain, but I don't have that particular framework in my specific consciousness, because if I did, I would be creating a barrier, a box that I would put myself into, believing that I have now gone into the fifth dimension. So I've created another matrix, if you will, that I have entered into based on my perception. So it's moving past perceptions, blowing things away, and understanding or understanding who you are. So it's not a matter of duality, it's a matter of triality or tri-reality, meaning that we are now bringing spirit, bringing the Godling, the Godforce within us into this reality to really create something that is beyond the scope that most mortals could ever comprehend. So again, the planes of deity. So when you look at the planes of deity, one of the other earlier phrases my guides gave me was ascend into the depths. And I've talked to you guys about see beyond, seeing beyond the veil and the different planes. But this is also very interesting because most people think ascending is up. But if you ascend into the depths, which is the wellspring of God, you're diving deeper into the natural essence of God. And this is really where the planes of deities exist. And to me, that's really exciting. So the big thing, as I talk about the matrix and 5D and different things that I want you to walk away with, is understanding that they want you to think in a certain way. And that thinking is a way of controlling you, like they've done with this whole fake corona thing. But it is something that the majority of people have bought into. But that, again, is their reality. So what is beyond that reality? What is beyond this existence? And again, those people that have bought into this whole charade, if you will be going in a different direction than some of us that have not. That those of us who understand what is truly transpiring here on earth will go and walk on a different path. So let me give you a couple different examples of things that have been hidden from us. So when you look at, as an example, ancient Sumerian text, and I think I've talked about this before because there's actually a Sumerian tablet that the Old Testament, the Christian Old Testament Bible, is modeled after word for word. They actually even use the same names. So how can that be a Christian Bible when it's in a 12,000 plus year old Sumerian text, which was brought here to this earth, our planet Heart, by extraterrestrials? Doesn't really make sense. So again, what I would like for you to, or invite you to do, is think differently. Think optically, and I talked about this a while back, is how to have optical thinking. It's very important to understand that they mislead us. Now, the other component to Sumerians, again, 12,000 years ago, is 12 base math, not 10 base math. So 12 base math is a math that was brought to this planet that was in existence 12,000 plus years ago. And of course, they've now changed and altered that to the metric in just about 99% of the other countries in the world with the metric system, and altered the way we look at and calculate different things. But even in the United States, it still has an impact, even though we're still on imperial type math, which is the 12 base math system. Because when you look at it, back today, or I should say, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? And then again, when you look at, I say then again, but now when you look at the Sumerian math, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then what's interesting is that Sumerian math, the 10, instead of being a 1 and a 0, was its own symbol or character. It was an individual. 11 was not 2 digits. It was 1 digit. So again, The 10 in Sumerian math was 1 digit. The 11 in Sumerian numerical system was 1 digit. And of course they didn't, and then at 12 they went to 2 digits. So what exactly does that mean? What does that change? Well, it changes everything. It changes the computational aspects of everything on this planet. It changes how we look at quantum mechanics. It changes everything. So what else have they hidden? Well, I could do a whole list. How many of you know that there's actually 13 astrological houses, not 12? So everything you've ever been told about your horoscope isn't exactly right, because there are 13 houses which they've known about forever. So all this computer programs and things, when you go and get an astrological reading, they're not based on the 13 houses. They're based on the 12 houses. So whatever zodiac sign you think you are, you're probably not. And again, I can kind of go on and on and on. I mean, there are so many things that have been altered and changed throughout society. And here in America, I mean, I can go on and name lots, but one of my favorites to talk about is prohibition. And everybody's like, prohibition? Well, that's when they stopped, serving alcohol. But do you know why? Well, no. I mean, people just think that it was to stop drinking in the United States. Well, actually, before Prohibition was started, every car that was produced in the world ran off alcohol, not gasoline. And so Prohibition was actually enacted and sponsored by Standard Oil in order to cause this shortage and stop production of alcohol so they could switch the cars to using gasoline, which gave them a monopoly versus just using corn or whatever it might be in order to inexpensive commodity types of products to produce alcohol. So what I want to invite you to do is just think differently, question things, evolve to the point of saying, is that true? How could that possibly be true? Or what is it that doesn't resonate? So what I guess I'm really inviting you to do is when you look at something, question it, and then ask your inner self, the intuitiveness, the godling within you, this structure of awakened energy that is now growing within you and expanding and blossoming within you. And again, going from toning into amplification, which is blossoming. So let me know if you have any questions. This was really a discussion around how to, and again, get and stay within the heart and understand that it's absolutely imperative for you to escape and throw off all the different things that may be holding you back in this false matrix to achieve your true potential, your infinite potential, your true God self. And you are one of a fraction of a percentage on this planet that now has this type of information. And I think I'll do a little bit more deep dives in the future around this sort of thing. My Godlings, and this is like so exciting to me. So Godlings, Godforce, I'm actually just thrilled that I'm able to bring this to you. So as you expand in this amazing love that you have and moving from the head into the heart, which is what they don't want, this actually helps reshape our reality, going beyond duality to triality and infusing spirit within it. So with that, subscribe, like the video, all that kind of stuff that they like to say. Or, love the video. A little subliminal programming there. Anyway, I love you guys, and please ping me with questions. I know you do. I get like plenty of emails from y'all, and I love that, and of course messages and things. And so thank you for your heartfelt support in this endeavor that we are the pioneers, these godlings that are coming forth on this planet at this time to share the Godforce, to share this infinite, unselfish love with all beings. So until next time, I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye-bye.